Welcome everyone back to weekly weather updates, and in today's video we're going to have a look at the latest from the live radar. We'll run through the weather warnings as we do have a yellow and rain warning in force over the next couple of days, and we'll have a look at the UKV, look at the precipitation and the temperature over the next 5 days. So we do have a stormy period of weather coming up. We've generally been quite unsettled, but could be seeing some quite stormy conditions over the next day or two, especially in the north and the west. Now, the last couple of days, we've been looking at the potential for sort of 80, 90 mile per hour wind gusts for some in Scotland. Doesn't look like the low is developing that much. It's very volatile, the models, whenever we are developing very small low pressure systems, and instead it looks likely to see more widely 50, 60, and locally 70 miles per hour. So a little bit of a downgrade there, but still warranted of a yellow wind warning. We'll then have a look at the GFS, GEM, Eastern WF, and the ensembles in the second half of the video, as it does look likely we're going to continue in a westerly theme, but there are perhaps signs, as we have seen a little bit over the last few days, of a bit of amplification in the longer term, around that day 7 to day 10 range. Now, amplification is not going to do anything ridiculous, but it could change those air masses around, bring us slightly colder or slightly warmer, and it could give a chance of some more higher pressure conditions building in as well, some transient ridges of higher pressure. So we'll see what the models are showing in the second half of the video. So yeah. Do remember, if you enjoy my videos, make sure you like and subscribe, and remember to follow me on Twitter as well. The link's in the description. So if we do start on live radar, you can see we've got a lot of precipitation pushing into the north and the west at the moment on a sort of a southwest to northeast track. So most of the precipitation will be across parts of Wales, northern England, Scotland, and the Republic of Ireland and Northern Ireland over the next sort of 24 to 48 hours. It will slowly progress eastwards and southwards, eventually sweeping through all areas with the cold front, but at the moment this precipitation is just going to be piling in to these areas, and yeah, it's going to be quite a miserable day there today, and most likely will be miserable again tomorrow. Now, if you put on the temperatures and you see what they're showing as of around midday, you can see it's not too bad to the south and east of those weather fronts. You can see quite a big temperature gradient there, and that's because the south and east, we are in a relatively warm air mass. It is fueling the precipitation, fueling the low pressure, but it is giving slightly warmer conditions further south and eastwards, maybe 18, 19 degrees peaking this afternoon. So not too bad, but eventually that colder air, or at least that sort of fresher Atlantic air, will spread through for all. So yeah, not looking likely to continue for much longer. If you go over to the weather warnings and see what they're showing today, you can see we've got a yellow rain warning in force today from 9 p.m. tonight until 9 a.m. tomorrow. Heavy rain may cause flooding and travel disruption to a few places as the big low moves in. Also the main low, the bit where we thought it could be really stormy. A period of heavy rain is likely late evening and overnight. 20 millimetres of rain is expected widely through the period, with a few spots seeing 40 to 50 millimetres. This most likely across the hills. This is likely to bring some travel disruption, rain clearing to showers around mid-morning. High likelihood, lower end of the impact matrix. If you look, we can also got a widespread wind warning across most of Scotland, Northern Ireland, Northern England, and parts of Wales. A small chance of disruption from strong winds on Wednesday from midnight tonight until 11 a.m. tomorrow. So yeah, quite severe winds there. And again, we have a look at the further details, and you can see there is a chance of a deep low pressure system bringing gusts of 70 to 80 miles per hour to some northern parts of the UK on Wednesday. Should this develop, disruption would be expected. However, the most likely scenario is for gusts of 55 to 65 miles per hour within parts of the warning area, most likely areas adjacent to the Northern Irish Sea and parts of eastern Scotland, bringing some more localised impacts. In addition, heavy rain may prove an additional hazard, particularly over southwest Scotland. High impact, low end of the likelihood on the impact matrix. So yeah, a chance of some very, very strong winds tonight, but whether it's 50 miles or 60 miles per hour or 70 or 80, it still depends on how the low does develop. This is one of these typical autumnal patterns where we've got a little kink in the jet stream, and the model's really struggling to see exactly how deep it will develop. We know its track, we know roughly how deep it's going to be, but this time of year, 5 millibars, 10 millibars, that is the uncertainty within these lows, can be 10, 20 mile per hour, which is quite significant in terms of what we'd expect in terms of disruption and damage. So we'll have to see exactly what happens, but if you are in these areas, do be prepared for some very strong winds tonight into tomorrow. They may just be sort of moderately strong gusts, or they could be quite severe. It just depends on exactly how it does develop. So if we do go over to the UKV and have a look at what the precipitation and the temperature is showing over the next 5 days, you can see the heavier precipitation moving through over the course this afternoon. Does peter out a little bit towards the afternoon before we get another push of moisture towards this evening. Big area of precipitation. Now yesterday we saw this form a little bit of a hook, and that's where the low pressure really developed, but you can see very little of a hook developing, a little bit of an arc, but nothing too much, for eventually it does sweep through Wednesday morning, bringing rain to the south and the east through Wednesday as well, before eventually completely clearing through. Then we all go into sort of sunshine and showers, and we actually get drier in the south for a period, and Thursday is wetter in the north with a lot of showers, and it does push through into the south at times, but generally the north and the west seem the predominant amount of precipitation before another big weather front pushes through into the weekend. If we do look at those wind gusts, see what it's showing, you can see at the moment we've got sort of 30, 40 miles per hour wind gusts, but if we move through to this afternoon to the evening, we see a little bit of a big area of sort of 50, 60 mile per hour wind gusts, especially across the eastern coastal areas for early hours of Wednesday, and then even more stronger winds through Wednesday afternoon. So it's sort of those 50, 60, 70 mile per hour wind gusts that can be disruptive, but can also just not do much at all. That's what we're going to be seeing. The risk is there for slightly higher, and I think that's why we do have the warnings issued. And of course, yesterday it was showing maybe 80 or 90 miles per hour, so quite a big backtrack from the models today, especially the UKV. So we'll have to see exactly what happens, but there could be disruptive winds. At the moment, most likely scenario is 50 to 60 mile per hour gusts. Could be higher, 70 or 80 is possible, but the most likely scenario is those 50 to 60 mile per hour wind gusts. If you finish by having a look at the max temperatures, you can see this afternoon those temperatures in the south and east peaking perhaps around 19, 20 degrees or so. For the north and westwards, low teens, a lot colder. As we head towards Wednesday afternoon, you can see those temperatures once again around 15 to 17 degrees in the south, so slightly cooler, and even colder in the north, only around 10, 12 degrees, maybe rising as much as 15 in northern England perhaps. Overnight temperatures drop down towards mid-single digits, and Thursday afternoon got a slightly bigger, bit of a milder wedge of air there, and you can see 18, 19 degrees cooler further northwards of course, and into Friday overnight temperatures not dropping too far, and Friday afternoon we've got quite a big contrast. There's a cold front is sweeping through the country, 18, 19 degrees to the south, only 12 to 15 degrees to the north. And again into Saturday, overnight temperatures drop down to mid to high single digits, and Saturday afternoon you can see those temperatures perhaps around 17 degrees in the south again, and colder further northward. So mid-teens look like the most likely scenario in the, or mid to high teens in the south, mid to low teens in the north, around average, maybe slightly below, slightly above depending on the day, and precipitation looks quite likely in the north at times, but also pushing through to the south as well on a few of these days. But the south does generally still look likely to see some drier weather. The north, though, there's always going to be quite a big significant risk of some showers. Now, if you finish the video by going into the GFS and see what that is showing over the next couple of weeks. Now you can see that little low developing this evening, a little kink in the isobars there, that little dip in the jet stream, producing that low across Scotland. Now beyond that we go into a bit of a flat westerly, and this is why it's drier in the south, wetter in the north. You can see we're on towards the lower pressure side in the north, higher pressure side towards the south, and we just see these big low pressure systems move through, continue over the next 7 to 10 days, but eventually, as I said, towards that day 10 time frame we see some amplification, a bit of a northerly flow there, that could produce some cold weather for a time. Again, not proper blocking, so it's not likely to sustain, but there is a decent ridge there, and it could provide a few days of cold weather, maybe frostier weather as well, and maybe a little bit of winteriness over northern hills. We can only go out to 276 hours because this GFS run is only just updating, but you can see it is looking reasonably cold in the longer term. You look at those upper air temperatures, maybe the -5 isotherm moving in there, pretty chilly indeed. You look at the potential equivalent temperatures, really quite cold as well. A real plunge of colder air, and the temperature deviation, you can see a good 6 degrees, maybe even 8 degrees below average. So it is pretty cold indeed. So if we do now go over to the GEM, see what that is showing over the next 10 days. Again, a westerly flow at the moment, looking quite unsettled. more lows pushing through, and again just staying westerly. Before day 10 we see that amplification. Now it's shifted further westwards, so what that means is the low pressure is sitting over top of us instead of Scandinavia, so colder air is plunging into the Atlantic, and we are just under a deeper low. So this would be very unsettled and sort of average sort of conditions towards the surface. The temperature deviation, we are sort of mixed between colder than average and average. So yeah, it would be around average, but actually feeling a little bit colder than average because of the precipitation showers and wind around as well. If we do finish by looking at the ECMWF, again, big westerly flow over the next week or so, looking real no change at all. And as we head towards day 10, you see amplification there, and again, even shifted further westwards, and we're actually on the eastern side of the low. Could actually drag up some warmer air there that could even fuel weather fronts, where the dividing line between the slightly cooler air and the slightly more humid mid-Atlantic areas most likely would see a bit of a frontal wave, and that could produce a lot of heavy rain in places. So all three scenarios showing slightly different from the amplification around that day 7 to day 10 time frame, but none of them producing anything that's particularly desired. Colder, drier, frostier weather, perhaps more very unsettled shower weather, or this could be very, very wet but slightly milder. Because it is milder, that wetter weather could even be quite torrential, really. So again, we'll have to see exactly what happens. But at this stage, it looks continually low pressure in from the west. We do finish by looking at the ensembles. This is the midnight run from the GFS. Again, you can see generally we're around or below average in terms of upper air temperatures. Precipitation not too high for the next 5 days, as we saw in the UKV in London. But after that, it will rise considerably around the 9th, 10th, all the way through to around the 20th. There will be dips where we don't see a lot of precipitation, but there will be days where we do see a lot. And you can see with the application of the jet stream in the longer term, you can see lower than average upper air temperatures. So more warranted those cooler air masses moving in, not as much the ECMWF scenario with more of a southerly or southwesterly flow. So yeah, looking quite horrible, really, the longer term, very westerly based. It won't be completely wash out in the south, but it won't be anything particularly nice either with those upper air temperatures below average. If we look at the sea level pressure, again, you can see we are generally on the lower end of the pressure, of the sea level pressure. Sorry, you can see generally 1020 millibars or lower, which is trending towards lower pressure, so always likely to see showers and unsettled weather. And of course, the centre of those are going to be to our north. So for northern areas, Scotland is going to be even lower than this, down to 1,000, maybe or lower than that millibars. And if we do finish by looking at the ECMWF ensembles, again, around or below average for the foreseeable future, and even bigger pickup in precipitation for around that 10th to 20th of October. So it could be a real unsettled middle period of the month, colder than average as well, and yeah, doesn't look particularly nice. No signs of any Indian summers, no signs of anything bitterly cold, nothing really that dry either. The south is just going to be dry over the next 5 days because the jet stream is positioned slightly further northwards, but with a bit of amplification, a bit of a dip into the middle of the month, it looks likely we'll be seeing more widespread precipitation. So yeah, not looking particularly good. And again, if we just compare that to Glasgow briefly, you can see huge precipitation spikes for the foreseeable future, just showing how unsettled it's going to be. So anyway, thanks for watching, hope you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new, and I'll see you again for another video soon.